Peace and power. This is your brother Maitreya Asek, also known as Shang the Artist, and I would like to welcome you to another episode of the Rebellious Rhymer Podcast. That's right, family. Black conservatism without the buck dancing. Yo. So today's topic, right? We're going to be discussing Pan-Africanism and the origins of Pan-Africanism, and we're also going to be asking questions like, does Pan-Africanism benefit Black Americans today, in these days and times? These are some of the questions that I want to ask. Does Pan-Africanism benefit us? Has it ever benefited Black Americans? Is Pan-Africanism a democratic ploy? Meaning, is the Democratic Party using things like the relocating to Ghana? What is it called? The right to abode. That's what it's called. The right to abode, relocating to Ghana. Is all of that stuff a democratic ploy? Or is Pan-Africanism sincere with its messaging and what its intent is? And understand that Pan-Africanism is just an ideology, okay? It's not like a lineage, like FBA is a lineage. Okay, it's an ideology. Growing up, I pretty much been a Pan-African all my life. My father was a Pan-African as well. A lot of the things that we used to discuss as Pan-Africans is, one, we would discuss a flat blackness, so to speak, right? Like all Black people, we're all Black, we're all one. All throughout the diaspora, the Black Americans, the Black Caribbeans, the Black Africans, the Black Latinos. From my dealings in Pan-Africanism, that was my understanding that we are all one Black entity. We're all one human being. We're all one. The flat blackness theory, right? Also, what we used to discuss as Pan-Africans was possibly relocating to Africa and building or helping to build Africa, building your legacy abroad. That was another part of Pan-Africanism that we used to discuss. Possibly relocating to Africa and building in Africa, investing, starting businesses, buying land, stuff like that. So that was always what Pan-Africanism meant to me. Another thing that we used to discuss, other than the flat blackness, or we're all one Black body, other than the relocating and moving to Africa and investing and things like that. Pan-Africanism also, to me, meant using Pan-Africanism to combat white supremacy. Meaning, let me break it down like this. Pan-Africanism to me was the idea that we cannot defeat white supremacy, YT supremacy, without the efforts of all Black people globally. That was my idea of Pan-Africanism as well. That it is impossible for Black Americans, FBA, to take on and combat white supremacy, YT supremacy. I'm trying to watch my words here on TikTok because we know how finicky TikTok is. And combating YT supremacy would not be possible to do without the help from our brothers and sisters of the diaspora. That was my understanding of Pan-Africanism, the core. That was the core of Pan-Africanism to me. Don't forget to share this live, like and subscribe. So let's go ahead and get started. So is Pan-Africanism a democratic ploy? Is it something that's being pushed on us by the Democratic Party? Is it a trick bag, right, to get us to separate ourselves and to disconnect ourselves from our lineage here in the United States? That's the question. So to understand that question and to understand Pan-Africanism as to where it came from and where it's going, where it led us, and where it's going in the future. That's what I want to discuss today. So mainly this program is going to be about the American Colonization Society, okay? But before we even get to the American Colonization Society, we are going to backtrack a little bit to what inspired the American Colonization Society, okay? Which was founded in 1816 by Reverend Robert Finley, okay? Before we even get to the American Colonization Society, we're going to talk about the origins. How many people know about Paul Cuffey or knew who Paul Cuffey was? Okay, Paul Cuffey was a black man. He lived in America in the 1700s, okay? So he was half black, West African, and half Native American. Okay, he was a businessman. And he was a sea captain in the early United States. And he was most famous for leading the first Back to Africa effort. Okay, Paul Cuffey was. Okay, this is before the American Colonization Society. Paul Cuffey was a businessman. He was also an abolitionist. And he led the very first Back to Africa movement. But let's talk about the precursor to American Colonization Society. All right, so Paul Cuffey, he was a pioneer of the colonization movement. Okay, so he was one of the first ones documented to have a Back to Africa movement because he believed that Black Americans would find more opportunity in Africa than in the racially biased U.S. Okay, so that was his reasoning. Paul Cuffey felt that foundational Black Americans would have a better opportunity to live a good life, to live a better life, to make a living outside of the U.S. He felt that if you left the plantation, so to speak, and went to Africa, then there would be better opportunities for foundational Black Americans. And was that the case, though? Was that the case? Let's talk about some of his expeditions, okay? The name of his organization was called the Friendly Society. He helped establish the Friendly Society of Sierra Leone, okay? So his movement was to go back to Africa via Sierra Leone. Okay, so he was West African, so he wanted to bring people back to his homeland. Now, he was an American-born African. You know, like I said, he was born in 1759. Okay, the Friendly Society helped establish a Friendly Society of Sierra Leone to foster trade and agricultural development in the colony. The voyage that he took in 1815, he personally funded. Okay, so the very first Back to Africa trip was personally funded by Paul Cuffey. He was a rich man. Okay, he was probably one of the richest Black men in America during that time. One of the richest. And the voyage that he took in 1815, he personally funded it. And he led a voyage that transported 38 Black American colonists to Sierra Leone. So he transported 38 Black Americans. His heritage, he was a West African, like I said. He was a member of the Ashanti tribe. So he was half Native and half Ashanti. He was half African. All right. But this was the precursor to what would become the American Colonization Society. Now, like I said, the American Colonization Society was founded by Reverend Robert Finley, okay? He was a white man. He was a slave owner. And he did seek out the approval and the endorsement of Cuffey. Okay, he did seek out the approval and the endorsement of Paul Cuffey. But Paul Cuffey did not support the American Colonization Society because he felt that Paul Cuffey felt that their intentions had racial biases. Okay, he felt that they were a bit racist, and the His Back to Africa movement was seated in racism. Okay, so let's talk about the American Colonization Society. Okay, the ACS. The ACS sought to address slavery by transporting free black people from the U.S. to Africa, establishing Liberia in 1822. Okay, so the colony that they established was in Liberia in 1822, supported by figures like the fourth U.S. President, James Madison, and Henry Clay. So the fourth President of the United States helped to fund this American Colonization Society, and Henry Clay, amongst other people. The ACS was founded on December 21st, 1816 in Washington, D.C. by Reverend Robert Finley, okay? Other key members included people like Francis Scott Key. We all know who Francis Scott Key is. He wrote the Star Spangled Banner with the famous third verse that has been conveniently removed, and it talked about slaves not having any refuge. Okay, that's what the third verse was about. But anyway, that was Francis Scott Key. All right. Also, other supporters would be people like Scott Key and Bushrod Washington, who is the son of George Washington's brother. Okay, so this was George Washington's nephew, Bushrod Washington. They all supported this American Colonization Society. They all financially backed the ACS. But the movement was widely criticized. Okay, I will say that. The movement was widely criticized for being racist, as it implied that black people could not be a part of American society. And it was viewed by some as an attempt to strengthen rather than end slavery by removing free people who might support abolition. Okay, so this was looked at by the foundational Black American community at the time. It was looked at as if we're not good enough to live our life here, and we helped and we built this country. We're building the economy. We're building this country. Our ancestors' blood is ingrained in the soil in this country, and you were trying to tell us that we should move to Liberia. So it was very much criticized by the black people at that time, especially black people who was supporting things like abolition, rescuing slaves and helping them escape from plantations, things like that. But the impact, let's talk about the impact. The ACS settled over 13,000 free black people in Liberia. However, financial problems, high mortality rates from diseases like malaria, things like that, and the difficulty of mass immigration led to the society fading in influence, with Liberia declaring independence in 1847 to govern itself. Okay, so the society started to fall early because people were dying, man. People were naturally being unalive. Well, I'm not going to say naturally, but they were being taken out of here, okay, by diseases and the tropical diseases and things like malaria and stuff like that. A lot of these people did not survive the voyage to Africa. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people did not. A lot of people did not do that. What's that? Jaden Spider? Am I? I'm not going to even read that. I don't even know exactly what you mean by prank calls, but I am doing a political essay. If you would like to add to the conversation, then you can add to the conversation. If not, then you don't need to be here. Okay, so let's talk about some of the oppositions. Okay, many free black Americans opposed the ACS, stating they deserved citizenship in the United States and that their rights were being violated. So a lot of people had an issue. A lot of people had an issue with this American Colonization Society. A lot of foundational black Americans had issues with this American Colonization Society. I don't know how many people out there have seen the movie The Color Purple. But If y'all remember when Celie, whose character was played by Whoopi Goldberg, her sister Nettie, once she was kicked out of Mister's house and once they kicked her off of her land, she got commissioned to go to Africa, to move and relocate to Africa. And she relocated to Liberia. This is what that whole American colonization society was about. That they made mention of that. They didn't say the organization American Colonization Society, but that's who was supposed to have provided funds for Nettie to move to Liberia. So that's basically what they were referencing. They was referencing the American Colonization Society. Anyways, that's just a little trivia for you. But yeah, a lot of foundational Black Americans had issues. You know, they felt that their rights were being violated. They felt that this was their land, and they're not going anywhere. You know who else had an issue with the American Colonization Society? Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass vehemently opposed the ACS and its efforts to deport free Black Americans to Africa. Here's a quote from Frederick Douglass. He says, "All this native land talk is nonsense. The native land of American Negro is America. His bones, his muscles, his sinews are all American." Okay? That's Frederick Douglass. That's a quote from Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass did not like, nor did he support or appreciate the idea of relocating Black Americans to Africa. He felt that wasn't our land. He felt that wasn't that's not who we are. That's not where we're from. We are American, just as American as anybody else. So that was Frederick Douglass's stance on the American Colonization Society. But family, if you can, please share this program. Share this live. Don't forget to send your hearts. Also, my YouTube channel, my YouTube page. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Subscribe. As we're going to get this thing going. How's everybody doing out there today? How's everybody doing out there tonight? I mean, because where I am, it is 8:54 at night. All right? And that is Central Time. I'm in Central Time. I don't know what time it is out there, where you guys at. But tap in and let me know how y'all feel. Let me know where you live at. You can put your area codes in the chat. Let me know where y'all at. But yeah, Frederick Douglass had major issues with the American Colonization Society. You know, and he felt that was not our calling. We're not African. Harriet Tubman also had an issue with the whole Back to Africa movement. Harriet Tubman had an issue with that as well. We put too much blood into this soil here in America to be going back to a land that's pretty much ancient to us, that we've pretty much never been to. Was not born there, was not raised there. So yeah, we're talking about the American Colonization Society and the criticism that it received. Now, some would consider this one of the precursors to Pan-Africanism. Although Paul Cuffey did it first, Paul Cuffey's efforts, should I say, was not as well known and was not as well recognized and was not as well funded as the American Colonization Society. Okay? So a lot of people don't really know about Paul Cuffey. You have to really do your research. You know, but although he was the first one to do the Back to Africa movement, the American Colonization Society was the first to be federally funded to do so. I mean, the advertise you can look up, go to Google, and you can find advertisements and flyers and stuff like that about going to moving to Liberia and the American Colonization Society and stuff like that. You can find documentation, more so than you can find of the Friendly Society, which was headed by Cuffy. The question is, was the Pan-African movement, either back then or now, is it basically a ploy to try to get us to separate from the Americas? Is it a ploy to try to get us to separate ourselves from our land? I say, being a former Pan-African, I'm kind of on the fence about that. Like, yes, especially in these days and time, yes, the Democratic Party is using Pan-Africanism to try and do things like the right to a vote, with Ghana, and working with the Ghanaian government, supporting the Ghanaian president as he came to the United States to petition to the UN for reparations for the transatlantic slave trade. Okay, which was, some consider that pretty offensive, especially being the fact that Ghana was heavily involved with the slave trade before they were even called Ghana, when it was called the Gold Coast. And you had tribes like the Ashanti tribe, who had one of the biggest slave trades and slave fortresses in Ghana. So, yes, a lot of people found it pretty offensive for the Ghanaian president to come here to try to petition for reparations. And then not really being strong in his messaging, talking about apologies, or we want apologies, we want artifacts. It's totally different from what foundational Black Americans are demanding. Okay, we're not demanding no apology. We don't care about no apology. We're not trying to heal and fix racism, because we know that we never will be able to do that. All we want is our check. Now, reparations to foundational Black Americans, reparations is more than just a check, but the first thing it is a check. Like my brother said during that National Action Network speech, that's very true. Then we can talk about education and land allotment and things like that. But with a reparations check, we can get all the land and education, go to whatever school. All of that can be taken care of if you just cut us the damn check. Okay? So, do I feel that it's a ploy? Yet, right now, today, yes, I consider Pan-Africanism a ploy from the Democratic Party, and maybe unsuspecting members of the Pan-African community who doesn't really necessarily see it that way. But just because you don't see it that way, that does not mean that it's not what it is. Especially since you have the Pan-Africans today teaming up with Al Sharpton in support of Ghana's president coming here and petitioning to the UN for reparations for the transatlantic slave trade, something that he had absolutely nothing to do with, besides his ancestors selling us. But other than that, he had nothing to do with it. I mean, you can't be the victim and the perpetrator at the same time. That's physically impossible. You can't be the victim and the perpetrator at the same time. A lot of these Pan-African groups are funded by the Democrats. I mean, let's just be real. Groups like NCOBRA. NCOBRA is well funded by Democratic organizations. We all know this. Peace and power to everybody in the room. I appreciate you joining me. Don't forget to share this live. Like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Rebellious Rhymer Podcast on YouTube. Also, give me a follow right here on TikTok. I try to post content every week. You know, sometimes I can go a little longer without doing that, but I'm trying to post stuff at least once a week. Also, if you follow me on Facebook, that's Maitreya Asek on Facebook, Maitreya Ahsekh. Maitreya Asek. If you go and follow my Facebook page, I will be going live tomorrow with two of my brothers, and we are going to be talking about the state of hip hop. Okay, so you don't want to miss that on the Rebellious Rama podcast. We're going to be going live on Facebook. Send me your friend requests. Follow me on Facebook and tune into that live tomorrow. Okay, it's going to be real live. We're going to be talking about. We're going to be touching on a lot of things music related. But right now, I'm giving you this Pan-African history lesson. Okay, I'm giving you. Are y'all? Am I cooking? Are y'all feeling the program so far? Let me know. Put a 1 in the chat. Put a 1 in the chat if y'all feeling the program so far. And like I said, if you have something to add, join the conversation. Join the convo. You know what I'm saying? It's all good. Pan-Africanism being a ploy for the Democratic Party. I think in its inception and all throughout the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and even the 90s, we didn't really see Pan-Africanism that way. Especially during the 90s. My era, I grew up in the 80s, in the 90s, and Pan-Africanism was a huge thing. In the late 80s, we were rocking African medallions. We were rocking, red, black, and green colors. We were rocking the Rastafarian colors, red, yellow, and green. We were rocking things like cross colors, Carl Kanai, things like that. Like I said, the African medallions. We was rocking all of that. You know what I'm saying? So Malcolm X was a big thing. The Malcolm X movie came out in the 90s. That was a huge thing. A lot of us were wearing them X medallions and stuff like that. Pan-Africanism was pretty large in the 90s. Okay? So at that time, like I said, we saw Pan-Africanism as an ideology that was meant for the survival of Black people all throughout the diaspora, not just Black Americans. That's what we saw it as. Truth be told, that's what we still see it as, but the problem is being usurped and it's being infiltrated. Okay, that's one of the main issues with Pan-Africanism today. It's being usurped and it's being infiltrated by the government, by Democrats, by the Democratic Party, by all types of informants and stuff like that. Karinga, for example, was the brother who came up. He was an activist and stuff like that in the 60s, and he's the brother who came up with Kwanzaa. Okay, which I really don't know a lot of people who celebrate Kwanzaa. In my family, nobody celebrates Kwanzaa. Al Sharpton National Action Network event. Seen a lot of Pan-Africans in there. I don't know if y'all know this, but Al Sharpton, see him as an informant. We see him as a sellout. We see him as the dude who tried to allegedly tried to set up Assata Shakur to have her captured and sent back to America. We see him as a hustler, a preacher pimp, pork chop juice dripping down the side of the mouth type of character, right? The shady type. This is Al Sharpton's reputation in the neighborhood. He got busted dealing dope, allegedly, selling smack to people in the streets. He got caught in a sting operation involving that. Some say that being caught in that is what got him to singing, or should I say, the word is snitching. Okay, back in the days we used to say singing or stool pigeon or whatever, right? Like he's in the precinct singing. Al Sharpton was singing, and supposedly that's the reason when he got caught up with those drug charges. So just overall not a trustworthy, guy in the black community. We look at him as a hustler. Like he chases the cameras and looking for a dollar, looking to make his next dollar by being in front of the cameras for some black issue or another. That's how we see Al Sharpton. So automatically, if you were associating yourself with Al Sharpton, like I've seen a lot of Pan Africans do at his recent event that he had, it's going to cause us to look at you funny too, family. I mean, I'm just going to be real with you. So I believe that although Pan-Africanism, some good came out of it. Me personally, although I haven't received anything tangible out of Pan-Africanism. It's always a one-sided thing to me. So I haven't received anything tangible financially out of Pan-Africanism. But I did find a self of spirituality. My spirituality comes out of those pyramids in Kemet. Okay, those pyramids of Giza, and that step pyramid, and that bent pyramid, and the red pyramid. My spirituality comes out of those megalithic structures. I read a lot of Pan-African books. You know what I'm saying? That's how Pan-Africanism influenced me spiritually and maybe academically to some degree, but never financially. Never financially. The financial part comes in when the people from the diaspora come here to this country. They benefit financially. How do you ask? And some people, and I made this argument before, and people say, well, that's not Pan-Africanism. The hell it ain't. The hell it's not. This is something that Black Americans fought for, bled for, died for in the streets so that immigrants can come here and get things like housing vouchers, get things like healthcare, get things like WIC, food stamps, SNAP program, the DACA program, the Dreamer program, things like sanctuary cities. We fought for all of that. All of those rights that the immigrants get, Black and otherwise, when they come here, they're getting those benefits because of the work and the blood, sweat, and tears that foundational Black Americans put in. We fought for those rights. That's Pan-Africanism. We were big Pan-Africanists back in the days. We were changing our names from Cassius Clay to Muhammad Ali. We was changing our names from Peter and John and names from the Bible and stuff like that to names like Mustafa and Shaheem and stuff like that. We were changing our name to African-centered names. Nobody practiced Pan-Africanism like Black Americans. Nobody. Nobody stood and held that red, black, and green flag like Black Americans. We stood for Pan-Africanism at its very core, and we never benefited from it. The immigrants did benefit from it, but we never. So I see Pan-Africanism as a ploy by the Democratic Party to try to get us to disconnect from our land, to get as many of us as possible to move, to relocate to places like Ghana, Sierra Leone, South Africa, Nigeria, wherever. It's a ploy to get us to relocate to Africa while Africans of the diaspora and Caribbeans in the diaspora are making their way to this country in droves. In droves. To take our place, to take and to build off of what we've already laid down. Okay? They want to come and destiny swap. And I believe the Democratic Party wants to help them to make that happen, is they want to destiny swap with us. So they, long story short, I believe that they want Black Americans to move to Africa, and they want to bring the Africans here to work, to basically serve them, because they know that Africans they're not going to fight. They're not going to fight on certain things. They are going to be subservient. They know that they're not owed anything like reparations, so they're not going to fight for that. They're pretty much going to be good old boys and going to be waiting for that pat on the head from master. You know what I'm saying? And that's something historically that Black Americans have done. Yeah, you have a few of us out there who are looking for a pat on the head, but for the most part, we are pretty solid and pretty consistent with the keeping our foot and keeping our boots on the neck of these devils, man. We're pretty consistent with that. We're going to stay consistent with that. Some of us might move to Africa. Some of us might relocate to the continent. But the majority of us know and understand that we are Black Americans. Our ancestors bled and died and was buried in this soil here. We're not going to leave that behind. We're not going to forget about that. And this is our land, okay? Right here. So we're not going anywhere. Nobody's going to destiny swap with us. The delineation movement is just getting started. And, we got a lot of work to do, family. We are going to keep the subject of reparations in the national lexicon. And the only person who is qualified to speak on Black Americans' reparations from the transatlantic slave trade is other Black Americans or foundational Black Americans, nobody else. Nobody's coming from the Caribbean to speak on foundational Black Americans' reparations. Nobody is coming from Africa to speak on the foundational Black Americans' reparations claim. Nobody's going to represent foundational Black Americans, but other foundational Black Americans. Do I make myself clear? So yeah, family, that's pretty much what it is. I just wanted to do a quick build tonight about the American Colonization Society. The American Colonization Society did not end until the 1960s. So it's been around for a long time. The American Colonization Society has been around for a long time. A lot of people fought against it. A lot of people came back. If they survived that voyage, they left and came back because it just wasn't happening there. The society wasn't thriving. People were dying. People were getting finessed. Just like today, people are getting finessed, getting money stolen, getting ripped off, buying land, and you thinking that you own the land, but you only own it for like 50 years, 99 years, and then they take it back from you. Sometimes they just take the land back from you immediately. A lot of scams, a lot of trick bags, a lot of one-way transactional relationships. How much money are you bringing to the table? Meanwhile, the Asian man can bring nothing to the table and come down there and whoop people with sticks and open up a business and they'll do nothing about it. But, that's neither here or there, family. I just wanted to talk about the American Colonization Society and the origins of Pan-Africanism. I appreciate you joining me today. If you want to join me tomorrow for another episode of the Rebellious Rhymer podcast, that would be great, family. I will have two special guests. These are some good friends of mine. I go way back. They're musicians and producers and MCs as well. And we're going to be talking about the state of hip hop. So join me tomorrow. But today I'm going to end this live. So you have tuned into another episode of the Rebellious Rhymer podcast. Black conservatism without the duck dancing. And always remember, the revolution starts with you. All right? 1.